Welcome to All Lacrosse Live. It's Sunday night, 9 o'clock. I'm Gary Groob in Toronto, and with me I have Shawn Slaght in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. How are you, Shawn?
Doing good, Gary. How about yourself?
Pretty good, thanks. And I have Muffler Mike Kostiuk over in Connecticut. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing good, Gary.
Only once, Mike.
It
Only once. It was a great week, guys. There's a lot of things going on. A lot of news, a lot of transactions, a lot of games, a lot of everything, really. And a heck of a snowstorm over here in Toronto. So we lost 2 arena lacrosse games because of that. One of which was a game that was one that I had circled because it was Oshawa and Brampton going at it for first place. So they will be rescheduling those couple of games. But man, I was looking forward to going out and catching it as well. But I guess that'll be in a few weeks. But they have to do it soon because their playoffs happen at the end of this month. So they only have a few weekends, and as far as I can see, they're pretty packed to get all 14 games in. And it looks like they're going to need all 14 so that they actually have a 1 through 4. Because just like the NLL, they're log jammed at the top, log jammed at the bottom. But just before we get headlong into everything, let's just do a few things for the network. And again, episodes are streamed live across Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. And you can catch all the action on eopsports.com. Remember to hit subscribe, follow, like, and always share with your friends, family, coworkers, and anybody else you can think of. Enjoy our affiliates as well, the Broad Street Bully Podcast, Philly Press Box Radio, Edge of Philly Sports Live, Birds IQ, Pattison Avenue Fanatics, Talking Philly Sports with Matty B, Devereaux Sports, Painted Lions, and Party on Broad. If you've missed a show, no worries. You can grab podcasts on all the major podcasting companies, which include iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon, and so much more. And you can stay up to date at all times by follow sports by visiting eopsports.com with great articles from a huge staff of contributors. And while you're there, subscribe to our newsletter at eopsports.com as well. A few ads to get through. Remember, with St. Patrick's Day coming up, there's Dolan's and their 69th annual St. Patrick's Day, featuring Brent Porsche from 93.3. Also live bands, food vendors, drink specials. So 24 East Sellers Avenue, Ridley Park, for the St. Patrick's Day festivities and any other day that you want to go there. Dolan's is your place to go. Sherry's Ticket Town is easy to use and has no hidden fees. The price you see is the price you pay. Pay less and play more with Sherry'sTickets.com. Saving even more by using the exclusive promo code EOP10. Don't pay hidden fees and save an extra 10%. Why use any other ticket reseller and get those hard-to-come by tickets for the big game? If you need more of a personal touch, give them a call, 610-494-5050, or visit their office at 1382 Normans Creek Road, Suite 1, Garnet Valley, Pennsylvania. Sherry'sTickets.com also has great theater and concert tickets that are hard to get your hands on as well. Remember, don't overpay with the rest. Save with the best. Sherry'sTickets.com. Save an extra 10% by using EOP10. And if you want to go on the road with everybody, PhillySportsTrips.com is your destination. Unfortunately, their stuff to the Phillies is sold out. But April 3rd, when the regular season starts, there's the ultimate bus trip to Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. You can go for the NFL draft at Kansas City, April 27th through 30th. The Philly Union trip to Colorado that also ties in with the Phillies trip to Colorado, May 13th through 16th. Or if you're looking for something even bigger, London and Leeds with the Union from May 24th to 30th. So check out PhillySportsTrips.com to check out any and all of their trips. For any of your legal problems, work comps, motor vehicle accidents, personal injury, or criminal law, David R. Cherry, Esquire, and his associates at the Cherry Firm will be more than happy to help you. Just tell them that the EOP boy sent you, 610-565-0300 in the Philadelphia area. Remember that the second annual Bats Invitational will be on April the 8th at the Blue Cross Arena in Rochester. Admission is free, but you need a ticket for the Nighthawks game that night against Albany. The way the Nighthawks are playing, you don't want to miss their games. They're exciting and a whole lot of fun in there. And they've done some tremendous things for the in-game as well. So you want to catch the afternoon and then again catch the evening stuff. Shawn, we lost you. You're back?
I'm back.
Good. Shawn was taking a break. Too many ads for him. Anyways. Oh, let's see who's here with us. Eduardo's with us. How are you, Eduardo? Good to see you.
Hey, Eduardo.
Are you sitting still in Texas, or have you made your way back to Florida? Eduardo was our roving reporter over in Panther City last night, showing us the massive crowd, whilst Saskatchewan was getting thumped by Panther City. But we'll get into more of that later, right, Shawn?
Unfortunately, yeah.
I picked Saskatchewan too. Don't you worry. That one hurt.
Not for me.
Yeah, well, hey, didn't hurt for Shawn either, man. That's only
yeah, for my pickup is all right.
Panther City as well. So
yeah,
Shawn's actually sitting on a perfect week if Toronto can win tomorrow night. So,
you don't jinx it.
I don't want to jinx it.
Please jinx it.
My bet 365 is depending on Toronto winning. So it's like, if there's a God, Daddy needs a new pair of shoes. Mine got wet with the snow. Really. All right, just a little story here about Peyton Cormier. He's a big prospect. On a scholarship over at Virginia. He was the ACC Offensive Player of the Week. Let me get rid of the banner here for a second, just so. 7 goals versus number 9 Ohio. Pretty impressive. Now he's had a hell of a career with St. Catherine's juniors as well, with the A's, and I look for him to be drafted really high this coming NLL draft. So good for him. Oh, holy smokes! Florida, my goodness. He doesn't waste any time, does he?
Nope.
And Eduardo, he's a world traveler. Oren Lyons is 93 today. Now, anybody who has watched some of my other shows would have known that I had him on the show about 6 months ago with Bullet Bob Terring and with Roy Simmons Jr. And what a show that was. But just to give you a little bit of a background of some of the things, because if I did everything, we'd need a second show. In the 60s, Lyons joined the Red Power movement and joined the Unity Caravan, which traveled through Indian country to foster dialogue about traditional tribal values. In 72, he's a leader of the Trail of Broken Treaties, a caravan to Washington, D.C., to convince the Bureau of Indian Affairs to honor federal treaties with Native American tribes. 71, a protest against the expansion of I-81 through the Onondaga Reservation in New York State. Lyons met with singer-songwriters John Lennon and Yoko Ono. The couple wanted to help with the protest after arriving in Syracuse for Ono's exhibition at the Everson Museum of Art. In 77, Lyons helped create the traditional Circle of Indian Elders and Youth at a meeting in Montana. Since then, the circle has gathered annually at different sites in Indian country. In 1977, forgive this stuff. This is out of Wikipedia. So if I sound like I'm speaking a little bit, should I be saying in native country? In 1977, he also was part of the Haudenosaunee delegation of Iroquois representatives to the First World Conference on Racism. 81, he traveled with Stephen Gaskin and Ina May Gaskin to New Zealand to attend an Indigenous festival at Mombasa, where he delivered a number of lectures and workshops. At Mombasa, he coordinated with Maori land right activists on questions of Indigenous peoples, sharing his Native American experiences. For more than 14 years, he's taken part in meetings in Geneva of Indigenous peoples of the Human Rights Commission of the United Nations. He helped to establish the Working Group on Indigenous Populations in 82, serves on the Executive Committee of the Global Forum of Spiritual and Parliamentary Leaders on Human Survival, and is a principal figure in the traditional Circle of Indian Elders. He was a negotiator among the governments of Canada, the province of Quebec, New York State, and the Mohawk in the Oka crisis during the summer of 1990. In 1992, Lyons addressed the General Assembly of the United Nations, where he opened the International Year of the World's Indigenous Peoples. He has an honorary doctorate of law degree from Syracuse University, serves on the board of Harvard Project on American Indian Economic Development, and is board chairman of honoring contributions in the governance of American Indian nations. He's received the Ellis Island Medal of Honor, the National Audubon Society's Audubon Medal, the Earth Day International Award of the United Nations, and the Elder and Wiser Award of the Rosa Parks Institute for Human Rights. Lacrosse-wise, in 1988, he was inducted into the Syracuse University Hall of Fame. In 1989, he was Man of the Year in lacrosse by the NCAA. In 93, he was inducted into the National Lacrosse Hall of Fame. In 98, he was inducted into the Ontario Lacrosse Hall of Fame. In 2000, he was inducted into the Upstate New York chapter of the USA Lacrosse Hall of Fame. In 2008, he was inducted into the Native American Hall of Fame. Ceremony took place at the Seneca Nation Casino in Niagara Falls, New York, and he is the honorary chairman of the Iroquois Nations. Wow. That is a resume and a half, guys.
Full life for sure.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Going strong.
Oh, yeah.
Still absolutely smart as a whip.
That's phenomenal
still,
to see.
You know, there are people that are in their 30s, I wished, still had the faculties that he has in his 90s. Hey, Eduardo's back on the road again. We should have a Willie Nelson music going for him.
Yeah, you should have a schedule where Eduardo's going to be this week.
That's it, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. All of us would, to do that amount. Let's not forget that he was also in the U.S. Army, too, before he decided to go to Syracuse. So he was already up there in age, and he was still doing Hall of Fame stuff, playing lacrosse. So
that's amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Transaction-wise, there was a ton of them. And Mike, your Albany Firewolves filled out this list beautifully, didn't they?
Oh.
Well, Nick Tchaikovsky's on the injured reserve list. Ethan Walker on the injury reserve list. Brett Manny is on the active roster now from the short-term holdout list. Zach Tucci is on the active roster from the short-term holdout list. Halifax plays Brody Burkhoff on the evaluation list from the physically unable to perform list. Vegas released Emerson Clark from the suspended list, put him to the practice squad. Jackson Subak has been placed on the injured reserve list from the active roster. And the Vegas Dogs have also placed practice player Nick Ellerton on the active roster. Toronto obviously put Dan Dawson on the active roster because he got his 1,500th point last night. But placed practice player Josh Dalwick on the practice player list from the active roster. San Diego did a few things. They placed Jesse Gamble on the active roster from the injured roster. They released Jay Govett from the active roster and put him to protected practice player agreement. They keep coming up with new terms that I've never heard of before. Buffalo placed Josh Byrne on the injured reserve list from the active roster once again. Placed practice player Sam LaRue on the active roster. Saskatchewan had a few things going on. Matthew Dinsdale on the injured reserve list. Marshall Powless on the injured reserve list. Clark Walters on the active roster now, and Mike Mallory is on the active roster. Philadelphia did a couple of things. Ian Lord is now on their active roster. Had a pretty good game yesterday as well. They released George Downey from the active roster and put him to the practice player roster. Panther City made us scratch our heads a little bit, eh, Mike?
A little bit.
Well, the big one was with Dean Farrell being released altogether. Remember last year, both Milligan and Farrell were the big turnarounds for Panther City, and as of now, both are off the Panther City team. Sign of the times, I guess. Eh?
Interesting, yeah.
Cameron Greniak is on the active roster from the holdout list. Liam Burns on the holdout list from the active roster. And they've also placed Ryan McLean on the active roster from the injury reserve list. Albany did a couple more things. Greg Downey on the active roster from the injured reserve list. And they placed practice player Jackson Reed on the practice player list from the active roster. And Georgia had placed Craig Wendy on the holdout list from the short-term holdout list. Craig and his wife had a little bit of a tragedy, big tragedy this weekend. His wife gave birth to prematurely to their second child, who put up a valiant fight for a couple of weeks, but succumbed. And so we send out our deepest condolences and sympathies to the Wendy family. That being said, this San Diego game, man, that was pretty cool. This everything worked for this game. Normally you'd have a glitch or two, but they had good weather. The stadium looked fantastic. Had a decent crowd, as you can see, and quite a game. We'll get a little more into that later. But yeah, what do you guys think, Mike?
I have no issue with the idea. I thought it worked out well.
I'm glad he didn't have it here.
I mean, the league's already asking where to next, so.
Which would put them in Fort Worth, I think, because it's winter still in most of the
yeah. Well, there are places you can have it.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any downside to taking the box game outside, like they did, it's probably going to be that. It's just you're going to be limited in the number of locations you can go.
Yeah.
Well, in a place like San Diego, where a majority of the time it is going to be sunny, and occasionally you're going to have your rainy seasons. Places like Saskatchewan, places like Toronto, Buffalo, Rochester, these places are, the weather can change on a dime. And it may look like it was going to be sunny on Wednesday as you're shoveling, half a foot of snow. So,
I mean, you don't want to play lacrosse in minus 40 in Saskatoon. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd need to have a coat, maybe.
Yeah.
Like they're already talking how cool it was. It was only 65 degrees in San Diego. I had been out there with sunscreen.
Yeah. No kidding.
No, but I mean, no reason why this couldn't be similar to the NHL's Winter Classic in some ways.
Yeah.
So.
Eduardo wasn't in love with the game outdoors.
Only one thing I did notice is I will get into it too, but I noticed there's the one goal that went to replay, and it could have been kind of decided if they had an overhead camera, but because you're outside, you don't have those angles. Yeah,
I get that as well.
I mean, that's just a small glitch, right? I mean, I'm for it too. I thought it was absolutely awesome to have it outdoors.
I'm pretty sure if they angled some cameras, although you won't have a direct thing, you can, the NFL is able to do things like that, so they can wire things up also.
Oh yeah,
you'll be able to have something.
They can fix it, no problem.
Yeah, it's a good idea, Eduardo. However, again, it's the weather. Because if you're going to go there, you'll be thinking of maybe Onondaga. Again, that's New York, Western New York at that. And the weather is, it all depends. And that is a snow belt. So usually they get it more than we get it here in Toronto. This time around, it was a little different as I went to Hamilton and saw that they had hardly any snow after I was trekking through it most of my day yesterday. So, it is what it is. But that's Canada. A few milestones to go through. Number one, let me get rid of the banner again, is, of course, Matt Sawyer. With last night's win, he passed Les Bartley with franchise wins for the Toronto Rock with 58. Now he's hoping to have another 6 or 7 or 8 before the season's done and maybe hoist a trophy. But that's still quite the milestone. And, of course, Matt had this to say about it. Being humble as always.
Against Halifax.
A couple milestones. You passed Les Bartley for all-time wins in a Toronto Rock behind the bench. What does that milestone mean to you?
It's something that maybe when I get a chance to reflect on it, to have a better answer for you. Said to the guys in there, we got 7 more to grab in the regular season, and let's go on a bit of a run in the playoffs. I've had a lot of support since I've been coach here, and it's just it more speaks to the people involved with the organization, our whole coaching staff, and it just happens that tonight was the night. But a lot of credit goes to everybody else.
Absolutely. Congratulations, Matt. The big one. We were waiting a while because Dan Dawson's been on the injured reserve list for the last few games. But last night out in Hamilton, on the first goal of the game, Dawson got his 1,500th career point. And again, this is what Dan had to say on that.
I've been real blessed to play this game a long time, and so many amazing teammates and coaches that, put me in a position to be successful and allow me to play the game I love. And, as you get older, you realize how special these times are. And it's just a reflection of all the people I've played with over the years.
And again, congratulations, Dan, on 1,500 points. He is only the second player in NLL history to hit 1,500. Of course, John Tavares is the leader with 1,770-something points in his career. Who knows? Dan's still playing like he was 32, not 42. So, who knows? Maybe he has a couple more years left in him. Anything's possible. I don't think that record is in jeopardy, though. Still, a couple of 100 points is a lot of games.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's within reach though of.
He is. He is.
Oh yeah.
Well, not that, but I was going to say he already is now the all-time assists leader.
Yep.
But he could reach 1,000. He would be the first to do so. 1,000 career assists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, anyways, to continue with some of our milestones, Ryan Benesh had a hat trick on the Friday night game against Buffalo and hit 500 goals for his career. Matt Vince is now the number one goalie with games played. He just passed Brandon Miller on that list with 262 games played. Joe Resetarits has got 600 career points now. Keegan Ball with 300 career points. Turner Evans, 300 loose balls. Matt Gilray as well, 300 loose balls. Jacob Rouet with 400 loose balls. Tony Malcolm, 500 loose balls. They keep upping each other, eh? Mike Messenger with 600 loose balls. And Callum Crawford last week hit 1,000 loose balls. That's pretty impressive. And for a goalie who's only played a year and a bit in this league, Stephen Orleman has already made 1,000 career saves. So good for him. Playing on a team like New York, he's going to face a lot of shots. They haven't had a lot of wins. And this year has been no exception. But he sees a lot of rubber. And he does quite a good job.
Yeah, and going back to that Benesh statistic, I think he's only the 6th player to reach that mark in goals. So,
yeah, rather impressive, I would say.
It is very impressive.
Alrighty. The Arena Lacrosse League, they had a little bit of a glitch, of course, with this storm. They lost their big marquee game on Friday night, which was supposed to be Brampton against Oshawa in what would have been a first-place tussle. But the storm that rolled in Friday evening, they had a 3:00 deadline and they called it. And they also called the next day, the early game out in Peterborough, which was the Oswego Bears against the Peterborough Timbermen. So both those games will be rescheduled, though they're running out of time because the playoffs hit the end of this month. So one of these weekends is going to be very, very busy for a couple of these teams. A couple of games that did go off. First off, last night over at the Rock Athletic Center, the Toronto Monarchs outlasted the Six Nations Snipers. By saying outlasted, Six Nations came out guns a-blazing. Excuse me. Going into halftime, it was actually 11-5 for Six Nations and 12-8 for Six Nations heading into the fourth. Then Jordan Dance happened. I believe Jordan Dance, from the last goal with about 7 seconds left in the third quarter. Through the fourth quarter, scored 5 goals. Toronto scored 10 altogether in the fourth and came away with an 18-14 win. Otherwise, we'd be talking about 2 upsets this particular weekend, because the upset of upsets was that the 7-3 Whitby Steelhawks faced the 3-7 Paris River Wolves at the Iroquois Lacrosse Arena this afternoon, and Paris came away with a 15-14 victory. And they actually had a 15-13 thing. Whitby was making a comeback. They scored inside a minute and couldn't get that tying goal. But it was a great showing for Paris, because they've had all kinds of trouble this year fielding lineups, keeping a steady lineup in there, and maybe they've turned a corner. I said before that those lower teams could be playing spoiler roles, and here's your first one of the bunch. Upcoming, next week, you have Paris against Oshawa in the early game at the Oshawa Children's Arena. In the late game, you have Brampton against Whitby for another one that's going to be something to do with whether you finish first or fourth heading into the playoffs. On Sunday, next Sunday, you have Toronto against Oswego at the Iroquois Lacrosse Arena in the early game, and Peterborough against Six Nations in the later game, the 4 o'clock game, again at the Iroquois Lacrosse Arena. So there's going to be some really, really excellent games coming up to determine positioning, because right now, the way it stands, it's a logjam. You've got Toronto sitting in first at 9-2, Brampton sitting in second at 8-2, Oshawa at 7-3, Whitby 7-4. So these all can change, because these guys got to play each other still a couple of times. So anything is up for grabs right now. As for the spoilers, Paris is sitting there at 4-7, Six Nations sitting there at 4-6, Oswego at 1-8, and Peterborough at 1-9. So yeah, look for these guys to be coming out and giving everything they have towards having a determining factor of who goes where in the playoffs. And, it should be very interesting. And if you have a chance to get out to any of these games, by all means do it. It's inexpensive, and you're talking about NLL caliber players on a lot of these teams. And these games are NLL rules and a lot of excitement. You are not going to be sorry for spending a couple of hours with the Arena Lacrosse League. All right, guys. Now for the big ones. We're into the NLL. And we had a game Friday night, even though there was all kinds of travel problems for Buffalo to get out to Halifax, but they all made it in time. And, this was a barn burner of a game, was it not?
I'd say so.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely qualifies.
Oh, yeah. Who had the game? Shawn, did you?
No,
Or Mike?
it wasn't my game.
I believe it was yours, Gary.
Was this my game? It was my
Your game, Gary.
Hey, it's my game. I'll take it then. The first quarter was all transition, all Ian McKay. 3 goals, put up 3-0. It took the second quarter where all of a sudden we had Halifax wake up. Austin Shanks scored a beauty off a Randy Stott's pass, and then Ryan Benesh scored 2 power play goals that knotted this thing up at 3. Chris Bushy actually gave them a lead at 4-3. Nick Weiss in transition tied the thing up for Buffalo. And Tyson Bell, with his first goal of the year, an absolute howitzer, gave Halifax the lead heading into halftime. Coming out, Buffalo came out ablazing. Nick Weiss, first off, came out with a transition goal unassisted to tie up the game. Dylan Robinson then put them ahead. Benesh got his hat-trick goal and his 500th of his career at 6:35, followed by Randy Stotts and Cody Jamieson to stake them to a 2-goal lead. Dane Smith then put the team on his back. He came up with 2 goals, at the end of the third quarter to knot this game up 8-8 heading into the fourth, setting up another one of those nail-biting kind of finishes. Buffalo continued their run with Nanakoke with a behind-the-back beauty. Absolutely beautiful goal that took everybody by surprise, including Warren Hill, to give them the lead. Dane Smith completed his hat trick to make it 10-8. Randy Stott scored with just over 5 minutes to go in the game, and Halifax threw everything they could at Matt Vince and the Buffalo defense, but they stood strong and were able to come away with the 10-9 win and keeping themselves in first place. What this did was open the door for Philadelphia if they were to win both games, as Mike's, shall we say, his advertisement I told everybody, with a Halifax loss and 2 Philadelphia wins, Philly's sitting in a fourth spot in a playoff spot, and Halifax is outside looking in. Well, 2 of those 3 things have already happened, so we're waiting on tomorrow night's game in Philadelphia against the Toronto Rock to see how that's going to play out. What do you think?
I think I'm concerned about Halifax.
Yeah, they're pretty
despite them keeping it close and I mean, clearly they're a good team, but you know they're struggling and it almost feels like their struggles are against the top teams,
which is a
they're
problem.
just not there.
Oh, yeah.
That's a huge problem.
You know, obviously I know, you know, there's, you know, I'm sure they'd like to have the I'm sure they'd like to have the loss at home to Albany back. That was earlier in the season.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I don't know. I guess I'm having maybe trouble just getting a read on them. That it almost feels like they had this problem at the end of last year, going into the playoffs, where they just kind of couldn't finish the job on some games, and despite all the personnel changes, it almost feels like they still haven't solved that problem.
You know, the funny thing is that they don't play 60 minutes. They play about 46 minutes, 42 minutes, and they do very well in those 42 minutes, and they take control. When they are actually rolling, they take control of the game. But then they get undisciplined. They take silly penalties. They didn't do it in this game. I'll give them that much credit. But they didn't play 60 minutes again. They stopped playing enough for Buffalo to get on that 4-goal roll and change everything. And that's all it took. Yeah. It took about a 10-minute span in that game to turn the whole thing backwards. And all the hard work that they had done, and everything was rolling. Going into halftime with that Tyson Bell goal, things looked really rosy because they were upbeat. Banesh had I believe he was the interview, and just talking about just continuing to do things the way they were doing. Well, they were their own worst enemies because they were the ones who absolutely stopped for that thing.
Yeah.
Eduardo doesn't think so. I don't think so. I don't think it's Buffalo wearing them down. In fact, Buffalo is showing that they have lots of depth, but remember, they're still missing players. They're missing Josh Byrne. They're still missing Chris Kluche. They're still missing Chase Fraser, who's signed and ready to come back and will be back next week. But these 3 guys who are major parts of their offense are not in their lineup. So they're relying on guys like Dylan Robinson, Brad McDougall. These guys, and they're stepping up and coming in and playing well with guys like Dane Smith. So, you know, next man up mentality for a team that's that high is a scary team.
Yeah, I'm with Mike. This Halifax team's hard to read, and it's that magic word, right? Consistency.
Yeah.
When they're playing well, they put in that full, like you said, they put in that full 60 minutes. Well, you have to consistently be putting in that full 60 minutes. If you're not, especially against a team like Buffalo, I mean, you know they're good. If you set back even a little bit, if Buffalo sees any weakness in you, they're going to exploit it.
Absolutely. And, you know, they only need to see one weakness. They'll keep going there.
Yep.
And they have the liberty of having a guy like Matt Vince in net, where if they go reckless and go forward, he can bail them out 9 times out of 10 and save their bacon for being caught by sending everybody up and not having anybody back. So if they're not able to get somebody back on defense in time, he's there. It's not like you have somebody who's going to be prone to giving up that goal. So they have a little more confidence in pressing and going forward. So we'll see. But Buffalo's now 9-2. Halifax is 5-6. And we'll see later on when I bring up the standings and how that's playing. Anyways, let's go over to the 11:30 in the morning game on Saturday and over to Philadelphia. Some of the craziest times, man. Monday night game, 11:30 in the morning games. They had that Friday game a number of years ago, 11 o'clock in the morning. We call it the school game, where all the school kids were doing homework. And it's insane. But anyways, New York came to town, Mike.
Yeah, for first of 2 meetings, and really New York, really both teams needed to find a way to kind of get things going, but it turned out that Philly would be the ones getting things going, specifically Mitch Jones. He racks up 14 points. And I definitely got to agree with that, Eduardo. I think he is made for the Philadelphia. I think this is probably, I'd consider this probably top 3, if not the best trade between not only in season this season, but the last off season.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's really
changed the whole dynamic of Philadelphia.
Yeah, it has.
That's what Philadelphia needed. They got it.
Yeah, yep. That's Sean's exactly right. Well, what they needed was something dynamic, and that's what they got in Mitch Jones.
Well, yeah, they needed something more than just Joey Rez, and now he's open a little bit more because they're concerned about Mitch Jones.
Definitely. So they end up winning 19-12. Again, Jones 14 points, 6 goals, 8 assists. Joey Rez had 4 and 5. Ben McIntosh 4 and 4. Blaze had 2 and 3. So, all the guys you expect to be stepping up were definitely stepping up.
Here's an interesting one though for you, Mike. Is Jeff Teague got 9 points, but he only had 1 goal. They actually were able to shut him down. They couldn't keep him off the scoreboard, of course, but they were able to stop him from killing them. Scoring.
Yeah, they did. And when you see 12 goals for New York, you figure Teague's got at least half of them. But the other guys had to pick up the slack. Connor Kiernan had 4. Tyler Digby had 2. Mike Burke had 2. So he's starting to maybe find a little rhythm in that offense.
Connor Kiernan also had a really good fight against Ian Lord at the end of the game. So he had a full
day. I think things definitely boiled over.
I do have the noteworthy Shul fight. So this is courtesy of the Philadelphia Wings, their Instagram. There we are. I don't have any sound with this one, but that's okay. There's the one miss, but he didn't miss on the second one. And here it is. Boom. Look at the knees buckle. Wow. And my decision now goes to Shul.
Yeah, anyway. That was a great tilt.
That was the beginning of a lot of rough stuff that went on in that fourth quarter when things were already out of hand.
Yeah, they did. I mean, New York definitely put up a fight, though. It was 15-10 going into the fourth, and New York put up a couple of quick ones to try to get it close. But I think the big thing here was Philadelphia didn't take their foot off the gas to open the second half, and that's kind of been their Achilles heel this season, has been coming out of the half. They've just been completely flat in the third quarter, and allowed, even when they have a lead, they've allowed teams to overtake them at the start of the second half.
Now, my question is the defense on New York. Has Orleman faced 64 shots again? He gave up 19. He made 45 saves. That could have easily been a 30-goal game. Number one, why not put Cam Dunkerley in? And number two, where is their defense?
Well, I guess I can answer the second question first. A good chunk of them are on IR right now.
True.
They don't have Dan McCray. They don't have Mac Mitchell. They don't have who am I missing? It's not coming to me quickly, but they've got 5 or 6 guys on IR. 2 of them might be goalies, actually. I think Kevin Orleman and Will Johnston are both on IR right now. So,
but it's not as though they don't have anybody. No,
it's not, and certainly
you got Noseworthy, you got Cummings. These guys are, Cummings especially. He's a seasoned veteran who was the captain of Panther City.
If I can interject, if the issue is defense, and you're asking about putting in Dunkerley, is it going to make a difference if he's going to get whipped with shots as well?
True, but at a certain point, you might want to just put a rescue into Orleman. Eventually he's going to feel as though he's just hung out to dry.
Yeah.
He faced 64 shots. Of course he's a gamer and he's going to want to play every minute. But, he was having a hard time already. Maybe just spell him for a few minutes.
No, I guess I can't disagree with that, because I guess, when you look at the box score, I think there were 3 different points in the game where Philadelphia led by 7 goals, obviously including the final score.
Yeah.
Well, so that's kind of getting to the point where it's like, okay, look, we gotta make a change here. You would think generally for a coach, anything over, say, 6 goals, as far as a deficit, you're starting to think about making that change.
That's a good point. Saving some guys too, but you're thinking when your goalie has given up, say, 12 goals, you might want to pull him just to, number one, wake the team up a little bit. Number two, give him a breather. Whether you make the change for good, depending on how your backup is playing, or you're just going to switch him out again. But you might want to just give him a little bit of a breather, because, man, because there was a span there where it's just every time they went up and it went. So obviously, and I know Steven from his Brampton junior days, if he gets in his own head, he needs a minute or two to just kind of reset, and then he'll be fine. But, he can lose his mind, so to speak, when things are going a little haywire around there. So I think it would be in their better interest just to give him, a couple of minutes to go and, walk down the tunnel, take a breath, knock over some sticks or do whatever you do, and then get yourself back in the game.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. I mean, I have to think Dan Ladouceur had maybe it was a little more difficult to make that decision. I mean, they were only down, I think, 8-5 at the half.
Mm-hmm.
So, for it's I don't want to say the floodgates didn't open. I mean, they kind of did, but certainly not where it was like, okay, hey, Philly just scored, 5 times in a span of 3 minutes. That's anytime that happens, you're going to see a goalie get yanked. It doesn't matter who.
Kind of my point, Eduardo. Kind of my point.
So. Yeah,
it's not a one-off.
No, that's a good point.
This happens continually. So.
And you have a service.
He's got 1,000 saves a year and a bit into his NLL career. It's because of things like this.
Yeah. And it's not like you don't have a serviceable backup in Dunkerley. We know what has playing time. We know what you're getting out of him. It's not like some kid who hasn't seen any minutes and you really don't know. You're afraid what could happen if you put him in.
Right.
You got a serviceable guy. Why not use him? I agree with you on that point for sure, Gary.
Right. All right, let's roll over to the outdoor game. Vegas visited San Diego at the Snapdragon Stadium. And Shawn, that was a pretty good game.
Yeah, it turned out a pretty good game. It almost seemed like another game where San Diego kind of played with their food a little bit and then pulled away with it.
Origlieri got pulled again, didn't he?
Yeah, he got pulled after the was the fourth goal. It was 4 goals off of 6 shots, I believe. So again,
The turnstile was
Oh yeah, goalie
got
woes
some
for San
questions
Diego.
about. Yeah, I mean, Chiliano was serviceable coming in. And obviously, they pulled off the win. What was the final score here? 15
Mike, they
to
did.
12.
Yes, they did. We'll get to that game next.
But yeah, and I mean, credit to Vegas. They jumped out to a 2-0 lead, but then San Diego jumped right back with 4 straight goals. O'Keefe, 1 from Dixon, Jackson, and Dobie. 2 power play goals, so that San Diego goes up 4-2. Charlie Bertrand had himself a game.
Been waiting for that, eh? We've been waiting for weeks for that.
Yeah, a couple of goals at the end of the first quarter. So it was tied 4-4 after 1. Kirsten Leclerc trade off goals, and then as we're talking with the replay, Bertrand puts one off of both posts and pops out. Call in the field was a goal, and they couldn't overturn it. Not enough evidence, and unfortunately, they didn't have an overhead camera. So they had to go with what was on the field, which was a goal. It was pretty hard to tell with the only side and back of the net to use.
Right.
Then again,
Dobie letdown in this one isn't Dobie now sitting over at 499 goals?
Yes, he is.
He couldn't put that last one in, so we could have had him at 500 goals the same week that Benesh was at 500 goals.
Yeah,
impressive. But next week we'll be talking about that milestone.
Yeah.
But again, Jack Hanna had a big game. This Vegas team is starting to impress me, even in the loss, because there was a point when I actually thought that they could take San Diego out.
Oh, 100%. They were right in this game until pretty much the fourth quarter. Actually, it was the fourth quarter where really San Diego pulled it out in the end.
Yeah, that 5-goal run did them in. That was it.
Yeah. And I mean, again, give credit to Landon Kells. He's a young guy, but he stood his ground. And as he's mentioned, Jack Hanna, 5 points, 2 goals, 3 assists. So again, proven he can play the indoor game. Chartrand with the hat trick and another assist. Zach Greer, another 5-point night, 2 goals, 3 assists.
But Curtis Dixon, man, he had himself a night for San Diego.
Yeah,
3 goals. He was just involved in everything.
And really, that's kind of what we were waiting for out of Curtis Dixon, wasn't it? I mean, he's had some good nights, but nothing like this where he's putting up 6, 7, 8, 9 points. I think that was really kind of what you're looking at, especially with Dane Dobie, who only had 4 points.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And, Casey Jackson had himself a decent game with 3 goals and an assist. Austin Stotts, even though he wasn't on the score sheet, now when you have other guys scoring, he doesn't need to be. It's when there's no scoring going on that he needs to step up. But a goal and 5 assists for Austin, pretty amazing. Like this team, when it is rolling, it is a very tough team. But again, it's another one which, is Vegas. This wasn't Colorado. This wasn't Buffalo. It wasn't Toronto. It wasn't Rochester. It's Vegas. And if you're having this much trouble with this stacked of a team, I'm still not convinced.
Even this game
convinced me against Calgary, and they took you to the woodshed.
Even in this game, you know what? We talked about that high power offense, and really that high power offense showed up. But again, goaltending was just atrocious for San Diego. And until they can figure that out, they don't have a championship goaltender. They don't. It's just the facts of the matter.
Absolutely. I agree. And they need to address it before the playoffs and probably before this trade deadline, which is, Mike, you said it was March 20th?
March 20th is the trade deadline.
2 weeks.
So
2 weeks to try and figure that one out, or sit like you have. And that didn't do very much good either.
No.
Thanks, Travis.
Yep.
It did. Yep. There's a rubber match coming up in that series. So
man, they have to come to Saskatchewan's barn, so it's not going to be an easy.
That will not be an easy trek.
No.
All right, let's head on over to the Toronto game. And as Mike Walton had said, Ryland Hartley made 56 saves last night. I believe that's a new record for Rochester goalie out of 65 shots that he faced. Pretty impressive, you know.
He's having a career year.
Nick Rose was amazing in his own right. He made 46 saves out of 54 shots. Pretty great game. Defensively, a fantastic game. It opened up with a transition goal with Brad Gilly scoring. Dan Craig, then he had 2 goals on the night. Both were absolutely gorgeous goals. Craig's goal was with Dan Dawson assisting, and we already talked about that. That was Dan Dawson's 1,500th career point. Thomas Hogarth then gave them the Rochester the lead of a Connor Fields pass, and Tom Schreiber tied that up with a power play goal at about the 10-minute mark of the first quarter. Turner Evans, him and Holden Catoni staked Rochester to a 4-2 lead, and in came the defenses. We got a little bit chippy as we were moving along that second quarter, and just to give you some of the fun and excitement. First bout of the evening. That was the first bout of the night of Hostrauser against Biles. And not long after that, Brandon Slade and Ethan Schott. I always love the Rocky music that goes on. Here we go. And that more or less, we had one more goal in the first half, and that was Corey Small. Basically ignited Toronto with that. All of a sudden, Toronto was starting to play a little bit more. They go into halftime is 4-3 Rochester. It was country western night there, so we sat there with a Hicks concert in the halftime. Coming out of the break, a weird goal, probably the weirdest one I'd seen in a while. They had pulled Ryland Hartley to put 6 men out and try and get an advantage early on in the game. However, with a turnover, Brad Creve fired the ball up to Sheldon Burns, who basically from the restraining line fired a strike into the empty net, and we were tied. Talk about a backfired play. Holden Gatoni, Ryan Smith, and Connor Fields then scored for Rochester, basically taking over this game, where my wife looked at me and goes, well, it doesn't look that good, does it? And then, again, Corey Small at the end of the quarter with a power play goal off a Stephen Keogh pass made it 7-5 heading into the fourth. Awake came the Rock. And in that fourth quarter, they outscored Rochester 4-1, basically shutting them down. Zach Mans got a goal. Phil Mizuko, I have become friends with his father, who sits around just a couple of rows ahead of me. And he got his first NLL goal of his career. And was he excited? Oh, yeah. Yeah, the party was still going on after the game. Let's hope there'll be some great lacrosse. But yeah, getting back to the fourth quarter, Dan Craig, they left him all alone in the back. He called for a pass, dove from behind, and was able to put it in the net, diving forward. Connor Fields ties the game up on the power play off a Thomas Hogarth pass, and then just a beauty of a goal from Brandon Slade. Nick Rose gave a pass, a great individual effort, diving across the crease and then firing behind him into the back corner to beat Ryland Hartley with 5.5 minutes left in the game. In comes absolutely everything. Rochester threw everything at Toronto. Nick Rose was sensational in those 5 minutes. They were blocking passes. They were blocking shots continually, right down to a play that you would have been very, very familiar with, Shawn. Toronto gets the ball with about 30 seconds left. Of course, with the goalie pulled, they're going to put 2 men on the ball carrier. Remember that one, right?
Yeah.
It didn't work so well in Saskatchewan.
No.
Last night, however, a little different game plan where as soon as the whistle came in, Schreiber had the ball. He charged like a bull towards the corner, got away, threw a pass across the floor. They killed all the time. With 3 seconds left, Rochester had one more prayer. Connor Fields fired a long shot that was blocked by the Toronto defense, just to be fitting for what they've been doing all quarter. And Toronto skates away with a 9-8 heart-stopping victory. This game was sensational. It had anything you want. You want a great goaltending, you had it. You want a spectacular goals, you had it. You want a great defense, you had it. You want to have a lot of shots, you had it. It went on. You wanted fights, you had it. You wanted a rough play, you had it. It was interesting, though. Paul Dawson didn't like something that Corey Small had done in the fourth quarter, and he wasn't himself, or maybe he was, because he was continually jawing at the Toronto bench from about the halfway point of the fourth quarter onward. And I think they needed him a little bit more focused too, as opposed to try and pick a fight, which, again, almost boiled over at the end of the game as well, before the ceremonial handshakes. I always get a kick out of that. 10 seconds earlier, you're just ready to break your stick over someone's head. The horn goes and good game.
Really seemed like this game had.
Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say this game really had a playoff feel, didn't it, Gary?
It did. And I think as must-win goes, the way Toronto was putting it, the way Matt Sawyer put it in his press conference, was you really needed this game because if not really, because they dropped the first one 11-7 in Rochester, they really would have been 2 games down to Rochester to try and catch them. And that would have been next to impossible.
Yeah. Having that split's definitely going to be important. And, I know Eduardo made a comment there about Toronto Buffalo East Final, and that may very well be, but you have to figure they're really going to want to fight for first place because they don't want to have to play Rochester.
Yeah.
If Rochester's a 3 seed. So
I don't think anyone wants to play Rochester.
It doesn't matter if it's home or away because they're just that good a team, and fast. And with Hartley and net, if he's on, man, it's really difficult to beat him. And Toronto, the way they're designed, and again, for most of the game, is driving me insane. And I know Evan Schemenauer made mention of this in one of his random thought articles, is that Toronto settles for the outside shot because they have such good shooters. They don't like to get inside and do the dirty work. And goalies like Matt Vince and goalies like Ryland Hartley, you have to get inside. And sure enough, the goals that they were scoring were on breakaways or on individual efforts where they're diving from behind or in front. They are inside. Of course, you're going to get a couple of goals like Corey Small had a couple of beauties that were just picture-perfect goals off the post and in on the far side. But that's few and far between. For every one of those shots, you have 6 shots that are missing the net going into the corner. So you need to have guys that are willing to go. You have Stephen Keogh for this, but he's starting to play like the Toronto offense before. He's assimilating as opposed to him bringing guys with him and saying, this is how we go. Let's go. So it gets a little maddening after a while than when you don't see them going towards the net and just settling for pulling up and taking that shot from the arc. So we'll see, because it works with a team like New York. It works with a team like Georgia. It's not going to work with a Colorado. It's not going to work with a San Diego. It's not going to work with a Buffalo or a Rochester, especially if you're in a series. You know, it may work once or twice. It may even work for one game. But if you're in a best 2 out of 3, it's not going to work for 2 games. They will assimilate. And happy to have you take those shots where you're using the team crest as a bullseye. So I'm hoping that we see a little bit different against Philadelphia on tomorrow night. But who knows? Who knows? All right, let's move over to the Georgia-Albany game.
That would be me. So,
Yeah. Mike, you're right. They were shooting low because that was a book on Hartley. He's shooting low, but he's got such good reflexes and such a good stick. And you saw how quickly he released it and setting the transition going the other way. It's not like he was going to hold it and wait for things to develop. That play's already set, and he's already firing, and it's up to his transition men to catch up to where that pass is going. So, yeah. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No worries. So Georgia came to Albany for second of 3 meetings and home.
After that embarrassment last week.
So Georgia ends up, obviously it wasn't nearly the blowout it was last week at the Hive, but Georgia does escape with 9-8 victory of their own. This one required a little bit of extra time beyond the fourth quarter, but the big performers here were obviously Lyle Thompson, 3 goals, 4 assists, including the game winner, which was, I think, less than 30 seconds into overtime. Shane Jackson, 2 and an assist. You had Andrew Q and Brendan Bomberry, each with a goal and 3 assists. For Albany, Connor Kelly, 3 goals and an assist. Tanner Thompson, a goal. Thomas Weissen, a goal. McArdle, 1 and 3. Heine Thompson had 5 assists, and newcomer Jake Fox scored a goal for scoring an Albany uniform. So
probably still has his stuff packed in suitcases just in case, right?
Yeah. So I mean, well, for I think he will be there a bit with the way that offense kind of is right now. I don't know the word on Charlie Kitchen, but it's sounds like, he's been on injured reserve for a while now, so they've pretty much just been going with Tanner Thompson and Connor Kelly and John Piatelli. So good to have a serviceable fourth forward on the right hand side. So and a big body really to kind of replace Kitchen. So
the thing that's concerning to me with Georgia is, yes, they've won 2 in a row now over Albany, but their power play, they were 2 for 7. They need with that kind of offense. You're looking at having Lyle out there, Shane Jackson out there, Andrew Q out there. There has to be more production, especially if they're going to win some games.
I would agree. They, and they don't exactly have an easy road. They, we've talked about it before. They do have the most difficult strength of schedule, and I'm sure we'll probably get to in a little bit the what I'm affectionately terming the Dyson Williams sweepstakes here, the battle for the number 1 pick, which is looking like it's going to come down to 4 teams at this point.
All who have 2 wins at the moment.
Yes. Yep. So, but we can get back to that in a bit because some of these schedules that these teams are playing are pretty brutal. So
absolutely,
it's definitely going to be interesting to see who winds up with that number 1 pick.
All right, that brings us to our last game of Saturday, and it was in Panther City. And Panther City wound up winning 16-10 over Saskatchewan, who is another team, Shawn, that's got me scratching my head because, one week they look spectacular. The next week they look mediocre. And is it goaltending? Well, it's goals,
and I don't know if you can pin this one on completely on Bouquet. I mean, his numbers were, I was going to pop them up here. Yeah, 12 goals and 33 shots. Or, sorry, 12 goals, 33 saves.
Yeah.
So 12 goals and 45 shots. Not horrible numbers, but first of all, we're talking about power play. With the team like the Rush, who have the firepower, they were 5.
Yeah.
And really, their production came from Church and Matthews for the most part. Now you have to remember too, as we mentioned in the transactions, they've lost Marty Dinsdale to injury, as well as Marshall Powless. Looks like Powless might have a concussion. He took a nasty hit to the head the last game.
Right.
And I think that really shows how kind of what this Dinsdale means to that team. Again, he's an underrated guy who does the little things that you maybe don't see necessarily. That can open up guys.
Right.
Yeah,
Also,
so it's kind
Kostiuk looked pretty normal in this game too, with just one assist.
And on the other side, you look at Panther City, is actually their young guys. Donville had 2 goals, 5 assists. Matthew Gauthier had a goal and 3 assists, whereas Saskatchewan's young guys were pretty quiet.
And Will Malcolm had a game of games.
Yep.
With 5 goals and 3 assists. And that's exactly what they need there, because they're not relying totally on Callum Crawford, who did have a good game at 2 goals and 3 assists. But, Phil Caputo, there's a name we haven't said in quite a while. Has been out, and he's been invisible when he's in. A couple of goals that really came in handy in this game. You're looking also, you had mentioned Jonathan Donville. Well, he's the future of that team, right?
Oh, 100%.
They've gotten rid of Milligan, they've gotten rid of Farrell. So they're putting it squarely on the Donvilles, on the Gauthiers, that this is their team and moving forward. Patrick Dodds, I expect a little bit more from him, but when everybody else is rolling, he can sit back and be a little bit more of a playmaker as well. So I think that they've bought into Koleski's system, and they're rolling up the very quietly. They're rolling up the West standings.
Yep. And me being a stickler for goaltenders, Nick DeMode, he's shut them down too. I mean, he's having a career year, and guys are struggling to figure him out.
Yeah, the only bad game I saw him have was the game I was in Rochester, and they seemed to have figured out something on him. And that night, one shot after another continually went over the shoulder, over his left shoulder, continually. And, after a while, we didn't see him anymore. McLeod was in after that.
Yeah.
So DeMode was putting on a show. Yeah, I agree, Edward.
I agree.
Malcolm had a great night, yeah. 1,100 in the arena. That's frightening.
Paid attendance.
Yeah, well, from everything that I had seen in there, it didn't even look like there was 1,100 in there. It looked like come as your favorite empty chair night.
Yeah.
There was an awful lot of steel. If I were, I don't know, just a little, I guess we call it a CFL trick. If I were Panther City, I would only be selling one side. It's actually a PLL trick. You sell one side of the arena where the cameras aren't, so that it looks more full.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do with the PLL. That's why every time people take pictures and put them on social media, was the stadium empty? No, everybody was sitting on the side where you were taking your pictures.
Yeah, put them on one side.
The cameras face I think it looks full for ESPN and TSN. And Panther City should be looking at doing that so that you don't have this empty arena that you're putting across on ESPN and TSN. And, we're talking about, you're showing places like Calgary, Colorado, Buffalo. The Rock had over 10,000 last night. They opened up the upper bowl as well. So, we could talk about this till we're blue in the face, but that's my idea to remedy it for the time being. Actually, I don't want to show it because I don't want to put more emphasis on an empty arena. But they needed to do something just to even paper the house. if you're going to take the hit, just get the bull riding crowd next door in, and go with $2 beer night. Do something that will get people in.
Yeah.
This is another one that's frightening. They're not selling merch at the game. Or
Wow.
they're too busy on the auction jerseys. That's frightening. If they're not selling any merch, I don't understand how they're making any extra revenue. Other than it being a tax break, this is one that the league needs to look at as another place to maybe come in as the savior and find a different home. I know they want it to work in Dallas or in Fort Worth, I'm sorry, but maybe they should be looking towards Dallas or Houston.
That's about what I was about to say. This was supposed to be kind of a Dallas-Fort Worth thing. Maybe it's time to look at Dallas.
I'm thinking so because, it's been 2 years in there. They have a great arena. They have a great team. It'd be different if they were 0-10 and nobody would want to come see them. But they're sitting third in the West. They're an exciting team to watch. They have a lot of very young, excellent talent on that team. So you're thinking maybe we should be looking at other things. We've given it 2 years. Maybe it's time to start shopping around a little bit, see what maybe would have more of a versatile audience that would be willing to have a look at this. Because like it's been put across a number of times, it is a bull riding society over there in Fort Worth. And that's what they live for, and that's what they enjoy, outdoors watching that. So to try and put them inside and convince them that lacrosse is what you want to see is a little bit more of a difficult sell, no matter how hard the marketing department's working. But the merch thing I didn't know about that. That's a little bit more
that's concerning.
Yeah, and that's what we're saying.
Yeah.
Is they need to be looking at maybe not looking at where the Dallas Stars play, but maybe looking at a secondary venue that will put 8,000 people in there. So that you start with that and see where you go, somewhere in the Dallas area. And I think that would be a better idea overall for the health and welfare of the league. Just before we look at upcoming games, which includes the Toronto-Philadelphia game tomorrow, just look at the standings. In the East right now, Buffalo's up 9 wins, 2 losses, tied with Toronto. Rochester is sitting there in third at 8-3. This might switch by tomorrow. I don't know. But Halifax right now is in fourth, 5 wins, 6 losses. Philadelphia, 4 wins, 5 losses. And then you have Georgia, Albany, and New York all with 2 wins apiece. For the West, a little bit different there. You have San Diego at 7-2, Calgary at 7-4, Panther City at 7-5. Wow, what a logjam! Because
that Panther City game had could have huge playoff implications just because you see that with the rest dropping to 5.
Yeah, 5-5.
It just causes more of a logjam. Yeah.
Even Vegas at 4-6 can strike in there. You put together a couple of games for them, and
they're coming on.
Vancouver 2-9. So yeah, Vegas is they put together a little streak. They could have really helped themselves out by stealing one against San Diego, but it is the number 1 team in the division, right? So upcoming games, I say we got the big one tomorrow with playoff implications all over the place. With Philadelphia against Toronto in Philadelphia, 7:00 Eastern tomorrow night. It's on ESPN Plus and on TSN Plus. Give it a check. Give it a look. You're not going to be disappointed. It should be an exciting game. Going into Week 15, Friday night, you have a couple of games. You have Halifax in Buffalo. That's going to be a barn burner after last week's game. You have Calgary going into Colorado. Going to be another big game. Again, playoff implications all over the place. Albany comes to Toronto on Indigenous Heritage Night. And if you want to take a look, starting Tuesday on the Toronto Rock website and get involved in the auction for the Indigenous jerseys and shorts. They're gorgeous. So another version style of what they did last year. This year it's in Haudenosaunee purple. So you want to have a look at that and maybe put a bid in. I believe bidding closes the following Tuesday at 8 p.m. So have a look and see what you'd like. Again, the jerseys and the shorts are up for auction starting Tuesday. You have Philadelphia going into New York. San Diego is going into Saskatchewan. Another big game, eh, Shawn?
Rubber match. That's the rubber match right there.
Yeah. You have Vancouver.
First of many, first ask. So.
Yeah.
I agree. You have Vancouver going into Vegas. That one I would have expected it to be a little bit more interesting a few weeks back. Now I give the edge clearly to Las Vegas. Interesting how this all changes in a couple of weeks. However, another deal or two from Vancouver, and
Vancouver took out Saskatchewan. I mean, you catch Boldy on the right day.
It's true, and get the right goaltending going on, and Aaron Bold stands on. I don't want to say stands on his head. That would be weird. I got to thank the Georgia guys for that line. They're awesome. Moving along, we have Rochester against Georgia on the Sunday afternoon in Georgia. Should be another interesting game. Yeah, it'll be. I'm curious to see again the things we talked about with Georgia. If they need to have all of their offensive guys rolling, because if they're relying on Lyle, Rochester's defense will bottle that up entirely, and Ryland Hartley will frustrate all of them if they give them a chance.
And that being said, Georgia.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, that being said, Georgia's got 2 wins under their belt now, riding some momentum. They could play spoiler.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's you look at 2-7, but hey, that means they still could end up 11-7.
Of those 7, I've said it before. I think 3 of those were games that could have been wins.
Yep.
For Georgia, including the one against Toronto. So, if they can hang out with Toronto, they can hang out with Rochester if they're all working on all cylinders. But that means their transition game has to be up to snuff, and it means their offense has to be more than 1 or 2 players. And it's possible. And, Wendy should be back by then, I would think, being in a Sunday afternoon game. But if not, Dobson's been playing fairly well the last few weeks. So,
yeah, and then that's going to be another thing working against Rochester is I think they are all done playing Toronto and Buffalo. I think they're the one team. But when you look at those 3 teams, I think they've already finished their season series.
Yeah, they played them both twice, right?
And they finished their season series with Toronto.
Yeah.
So they can't. There's no situation where they can kind of directly impact
help themselves.
Yeah. By taking out someone ahead of them. So.
Absolutely, but that's going to be an interesting thing. The Sunday afternoon game. If anybody's interested, Eddie Como, the head coach on Georgia, is on my other show this week. He's Thursday at 4:00 on Spanglish Sports World and on all of our regular internet lacrosse pages. So if you're interested in seeing what Eddie has to say, please tune in over there.
Awesome.
Should be an interesting show.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah. Well, again, he's got lots in the past to talk about when we play This Is Your Life. So there should be some really, really great stories too. Oh, Eduardo's in with his picks.
Ooh, already.
Wow.
Interesting.
Interesting is right.
Yep.
But yeah, it's going to be a really telltale the next week or two on how the playoffs are going to start looking out. And remember, with the trade deadline looming in a couple of weeks, I don't think a number of these teams are finished yet. So expect to see a little bit more movement other than these made up columns on the waiver wires here. The agreement to be a practice player. I haven't even seen this stuff before.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm shaking my head at it, I'm sure more people are shaking their head at what the heck is that list? But anyways, again, the big game tomorrow, 7 p.m. Toronto against Philadelphia. If you're in the Philadelphia area, get over to Wells Fargo. Inexpensive seats, a Monday night game. Go in there, go have some fun, go have some great entertainment at not an expensive cost. It should be a blast of a game. It should be a fantastic game. If you're not in the area, remember you can catch it on ESPN Plus and TSN Plus up here in Canada. Make sure that you tune in. You're going to see a fantastic game with so many playoff implications for both. For both,
Yeah.
Toronto needs to win this too,
Oh, yeah.
because there they can get actually leapfrog over Buffalo, give them an absolute little bit of breathing room, which is something that they haven't had in I don't know how many years, just to get a bit of a breath before facing Albany next week.
Yeah, especially with them, they still have 2 against Buffalo, and right now they're down 1 in the season series with Buffalo. So
yeah,
and like
last game of the season's against Buffalo in Buffalo.
Like I
So
said,
we
said earlier, you want first place in the East. You don't want to be facing Rochester.
Yeah. If Rochester's going to end up being the 3 seed, you don't want to be the 2 seed.
You want to try to get that first place.
Yeah. And we could wind up with the same playoff structure as last year. Buffalo, Rochester, and Toronto, Halifax. And we saw how that went. That overtime game where, thank goodness Challen Rogers was smart enough to not pick up the ball but tap it to himself and then outrun everybody. And, anyways, my prescription for heart pills. I'm telling you, after last night's game, you were just sitting there trying to drive home, and what's wrong with you? I don't know. You going for a beer? No, I don't think I can hold the.
You can't hold your turf monster.
Exactly. That's where I was going.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
I did not want to spill my turf monster. $5 after games. In the draft version. If you want to spend $70 for the case, Newark Breweries, just go to their website. They'll be happy to deliver to a degree. I don't think they're going to be delivering to you, Shawn.
Okay, dang.
There might be a fee.
Might be a small fee.
Yeah, to get the dogs. The dogs on the sled.
Yeah.
But yeah, it should be interesting. And, guys, if you're in the area of any of these games, please go check it out live. It's one thing to catch it on your tablet or on your phone or even on your TV. To see this live and to watch all the things that go on off ball and to see all the things in 3 dimension, you will be hooked. The saying that I love, and the atmosphere as well. The thing that I like to say is they will sell you the whole seat, but you're only going to need the edge.
Yep.
Or none at all.
100%.
Our other saying, of course, is win or lose, we drink the booze. Anyways, any last words, Mike?
Oh, just again looking forward to tomorrow.
Before we go there, did you want to look at the schedules?
We certainly can if you want.
I think if you want to spend an extra minute
about those that we want to talk about the Dyson Williams sweepstakes.
The Dyson Williams sweepstakes, and you're right. These guys have brutal schedules. Georgia in their next number of weeks are facing Rochester, Philly, 2 against New York, Halifax, Saskatchewan, another one against Albany, and then Rochester and Halifax again.
Yeah, and it's just
a couple of winnable games, but man,
and again, keep in mind that they did have the toughest strength of schedule this year,
and the most messed up too, because in 12 weeks they played 5 games, and now they play at least 1 a week every week until the end. Right,
and the next most difficult strength of schedule is, I'm going to skip over Albany for a sec, is New York, 2-9. They've got Philly, Albany, Georgia, and then their last 4 are on the road. They're at Georgia, at Buffalo, at Halifax, and then at Vancouver. So that could very well be like
That-
literally
yeah,
a
that
game.
could
For,
be, the game.
literally
Yeah.
could be a game for the number 1 pick because New York
The
and
Tyson
Vancouver
Williams game,
are
isn't
both,
that nice?
yeah, are both 2-9, and they're going to meet in Vancouver the last weekend of the regular season.
Right.
Potentially with both teams, down and out. For Vancouver, they've also got 7 games remaining. At Las Vegas, then home against San Diego, home against Colorado, at Sask, at Colorado, then Panther City and New York at home. So
Do you see Albany winning again? They play
Ooh.
Toronto at Toronto. Maybe they have a chance with New York, but I don't give it much. I got a feeling.
I mean, they've already lost their previous 2 against New York.
If
This
they
anything, I'm
play
looking
Toronto
at Georgia.
again. They got They got Panther City, Rochester, Georgia, Philadelphia, and finish with Buffalo. They might not win again this year.
They might not.
That's
So,
frightening.
Yeah.
Saying that, they probably win 2 against Toronto. That's just the way it goes,
That might be
the
that might
schedule,
be
I
their
think
only
they have
hope.
the toughest.
Yeah.
I think Albany is in some dire trouble. And would they be sellers in the next 2 weeks to change the whole face of this?
I mean, I don't know about the whole face of it because, I mean, they already changed so much.
But it's not working.
True.
I think they need to keep a couple of pieces they want to build around, and that's about it.
They have to. I mean, I hate to throw these names out there, but they're non-franchisable UFAs at the end of the year. Their captain Brett Manny, the assistant captain John LaFontaine, and Greg Downing. But the only downside to them, trying to move those guys is they're all on the older side. Obviously,
Right.
they're non-franchisable UFAs. So
and they're going to be.
well, yeah, of course.
For the
Any
playoff run,
any fan is going to ask the question, well, how many years they have left in the tank? Without knowing that these guys are are seasoned veterans, and we've seen, how many times have we seen the same way we've talked about despite talking about the importance of face-offs, how many games have we seen where one team dominates on face-offs and loses? How many you can apply the same thing to having that veteran leadership on the team. We've talked about how this age window is going to shift, and suddenly a prime is going to be considered 25 to 30 instead of 27 to 33, and that guys are going to be out of the league by the time they get to 35, 36. Well,
coming.
Look at
We're
Callum
already
Crawford.
seeing it.
Yeah.
Look at Callum Crawford. Look at Ryan Benesh. Look at Dan Dawson. Look at Brody Merrill. Look at Matt Vince.
Well, we're starting to see it with a lot of the other
all
guys.
those guys, I think, are 37 and older, and they're all performing phenomenally.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but those are exceptions, not.
Well, and here's a special thing coming to the deadline too. You're probably going to teams, and I'm kind of looking at it from the Saskatchewan standpoint a little bit, or they've got a wealth of, I believe, it's 2nd-round picks next year who are in the middle of a playoff race right now. They maybe want some of those older vets to come over to help them to get that push. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe they want LaFontaine back, or or they'll take Downing, but the veteran leadership, and Sask is a good example, that collapse early in the season against San Diego.
Right.
Why did that happen? Not so much, good goaltending as much as
2 huge veterans.
Dilks and Rubish, who are veteran leaders, went down.
Right. I have a different one also. Is remember in Toronto, you have Chris Corbeil still to come back.
Yep.
So that's almost like getting a trade of having a top flight player.
Yeah.
Jump into your lineup.
There's another upgrade. I mean, as far as other players who could move, I don't know. I'd hate to see him move, but I keep hearing, because he's also going to be a non-franchisable UFA. Obviously, if Georgia can't keep making strides, I'm hearing Shane Jackson potentially.
I've heard Shane Jackson too. Actually, I've heard of Shane Jackson in Saskatchewan, but I don't know how that.
Yeah,
works.
I mean,
yeah.
I would like to counterpoint with, that, hey, he's really involved in the community down there, doing the clinics and stuff like that. But you know what? So was Mitch Jones in Vancouver. Didn't stop
Yeah.
Vancouver from trading him. Obviously
Well, they
that's
got to
been
look out for
Philadelphia's
the
game.
benefit of their team,
But
right? So
yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean,
the
it's
future.
it's definitely been Philly's gain for sure. But
Absolutely.
who at the same time, who doesn't want a former MVP? And when I say former MVP, we're talking 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
So in
Still in
Shane
his
Jackson,
prime too.
so,
He's not over the hill at
Oh
all.
no. Yeah.
no,
So
no.
you can get him for a
So,
couple of years too. All right. Well, Eduardo had the one question here, which is interesting, which I don't know if we want to just hold on for it and figure it out for a week, because that's
Yeah.
yeah,
right on the spot.
probably.
Yeah.
Right
Well,
away,
of
it seems like of course, Panther City and Albany come to mind. But where would I like to move them? Dallas, and I have no idea where I want to move Albany now, because that's going to be their fourth move. Philadelphia, New England, Albany, somewhere. Yeah. So I don't know. I would rather try and stabilize that team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I want to keep Panther City in that Texas area.
Southern
I want to
area,
try
yeah.
it at Dallas before I move it up to North Carolina. I don't think that would work. Georgia's finally getting attendance, so I don't think I want to move them either.
No.
So I don't think I want to do
Orlando,
scary.
Orlando, you're not going to get
No.
anyone. It's no
Orlando.
different.
They've tried already and
It's
failed
no different
miserably.
than the Tampa Bay Rays or the Miami Marlins. People are in Florida. They, unless it's college football, they're not terribly interested in
Just like MLL.
Again,
right?
I mean,
They tried
the
it with
Tampa Bay Lightning
We're
might
looking
be
back,
an
going back up to Canada. I know we've talked to Montreal. Like a Winnipeg would definitely support a team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you get Montreal, you'll get Quebec.
Yeah.
So you're going to have 4-team rivalry there between Montreal, Quebec, Halifax, Toronto, right away.
And trust me, if you
teams
put
in there.
a team in Winnipeg, there will be a rivalry with Saskatchewan, no doubt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then of course there's always the Edmonton thing looming, because they always had if the agreement is still the same, they had an open invite when they were ready to come back to the league. So if they can get that all together with the Oilers, then you'll see them come back in too. And then we're going to have a really strong West and a lot of rivalry games.
Yeah, and then one more I'd add that I don't know why we're not hearing about it. Given that they only have they only have 2 major sports teams in town, St. Louis.
True.
I can see that working.
They're a fickle town, though. They're a fickle town. They need to have an introduction to it before you just throw it in there. So it's also one where field isn't a predominant one either, because there's not really any NCAA things that are going on in that locale. You don't hear anything else. Kansas City.
I mean, I guess I was approaching it from the standpoint of, hey, if you're Blues ownership, it's you, in your arena, and I don't know who else. They don't have a basketball team, so
what are the 4 sports there?
They have the Cardinals obviously for MLB, but they don't have a football team. They don't have an NFL team right now, so, and they don't have an NBA team.
Soccer, hockey.
Well, they don't have NFL.
Baseball. They don't have an NFL.
They don't have an NFL team, Eduardo. Not anymore. So
they are in LA now. Again.
Yep.
Anyways, that should do us for the week. Any last words, Mike?
No. Glad to see the playoff race. Glad, yeah. Go Philly tomorrow for me, for my pick'ems, and to see him get in the thick of the playoff race again. So, because that could open up the wild card again for the East, possibly.
Right.
With the way the Rush and the
the way
So,
the teams are dropping off in the West, you got the 3 that are going upward and the rest are going downward, unless Colorado gets on fire, and they have an opportunity next week as well. Shawn, any last words?
Yeah, just looking forward to it. To be at the SaskTel Center this weekend, which will be rocking, especially considering the implications of that game. Because seems like all these playoff teams in the West just keep beating up on each other, which is causing havoc in the standings.
Yeah, they've definitely got a rough road. I think so. The 5 of their 8 remaining games are basically in division rubber matches. I think they have
Which is what I
Colorado,
found interesting.
San Diego, Vancouver, and then 2 against Calgary, who they're 0-1 against. So
yeah, and not for nothing, I found it interesting when you sent us the information, Mike, that the Rush have not played an Eastern opponent yet.
No, they haven't. So there's been a few quirks like that. What's
I mean, it's nothing for nothing, right?
Well, we talked about Georgia only having 5 games in the first 10 or 12 weeks. Toronto's playing 3 games in a week. I don't remember that any time in the distance, because they played Saturday. They had a bye week the week before. They played Saturday. They're playing Monday, and they're playing Saturday again. And 2 at home, 1 on the road in between.
Schedule,
that's a bizarre
crazy
schedule.
Yeah, that's crazy. And don't forget too. I guess I'll apply it more to Panther City than Vegas, but Panther City has that quirk where they only have 15 in-division games, where the rest of the West has 16, except for Las Vegas. So that's something that could come into play if their head-to-head tiebreakers are still the same and records are tied and all that. So.
And just for luck, I've got a Veltman jersey, try and bring back some of that winning tradition.
Yeah.
All the help I can get for tomorrow's thing, because it's not just about the league. It's about my Bet 365.
Hey, I just need to go perfect this week. That's all I'm looking for. So I try to go perfect.
That's bragging rights for Shawn.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking for money there, buddy.
Let's not forget who tied. Let's not forget we're tied at the top of the standings now, Gary. So.
That's true. Shawn made up his 2 games on me already, and luckily for me, the way I'm going is that I told you it wasn't going to take long, did I? But we have the same pick for this Monday game, so I can't hit second until next week.
Yeah,
and then I can. Probably will. I told you. I'm only warming the spot up for whoever one of you guys who wins. Patrick's with us.
Me. I mean, I'm breathing fire now, but
you're up,
Patrick.
How you doing, Patrick?
Tune in tomorrow night, Pat.
You might want to go to the game tomorrow, Pat.
Go to the game, man. Yeah,
absolutely.
Get your butt over there, man.
Absolutely.
They're going to need people. It's a Monday night, so they're going to need all the people they can in that crowd. They're going to
want some revenge for that drubbing a few weeks ago there against Toronto, too. So.
I wish they would have saved a couple of goals that they could have put away. Anyways, for Shawn Slaght over in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and Muffler Mike out in Connecticut, I'm Gary Groob in Toronto. Want to thank you all again for joining us for another week. Remember, you can catch all of our articles, all of our recaps, interviews, and news and reviews on our All Lacrosse All the Time page on Facebook at eopsports.com/lacrosse. And you can catch us on all of the lacrosse pages through social media. You can catch us also on Twitter, on Instagram, and on YouTube at All Lacrosse All the Time. Until next week, I wish you all the best of weeks. Hopefully we'll be talking about more Toronto win. Never mind. Anyways, keep your stick in your hands. Be safe, and we'll see you all again next week.